The story today is a combination of camera and Daisy, the flower Daisy. My introduction to photography occurred when, at my bar mitzvah, Eastman Kodak sent me a box camera. They sent box cameras to every bar mitzvah. Of course, they didn't send me film, so that was a big expense in those days of the Depression. So I took a few pictures, I don't know of what, and then abandoned the project. As time went on, I became interested in photography again and got myself a secondhand Kodak, a 35 millimeter camera, and gradually began to photograph everything around me. I soon found that the camera wouldn't do everything that I wanted to do. So I went to a photo shop and asked what should be my next camera. I got a Voigtlander, a German camera, secondhand, used, and for a good long time I enjoyed using it. But then, of course, the Voigtlander wasn't doing what I wanted to do. So I switched to cameras from Japan. This was after the war. Japan was making wonderful cameras with wonderful lenses, and I was hooked. I took cameras, pictures with unusual lenses and filters, and I had the time of my life. But then, of course, I wanted a better camera, and I wanted one that would take a bigger negative. Actually, I was thinking of getting a camera, and the negative would be adequate for taking a picture of the side of a room or an automobile, which made it a wonderful experiment for me to do. I was interested in a new one, and when Richard and family went to Japan, I asked him, buy me, and I'll reimburse you, buy me a Mamiya. They made a camera that was bigger than I had used, but still I could use it for my purposes. So Richard came back from Japan with family in 1976, and that's when I got a Mamiya, which gave me a large negative. I didn't know what I wanted to photograph, so I thought about it, and time passed until I had an explosion of what I wanted to do. I remember it was Thursday afternoon. I had come back from the office, and I had my Mamiya. And what I did was take some white paper, the kind that doctors have on their examining tables, and I hung it in the kitchen from one of the cupboards. I punched a tiny hole in the middle, and in that hole, I put the stem of a daisy. So here was a large white area with a small yellow daisy stem. Next, I needed more light, so I took a light reflector and put it behind the hanging white paper and daisy. And then I set up my mumia in front of that and began taking a number of pictures of the daisy. I sent those to the lab, and remarkably, I had a picture. I was able to make a large one, I think 40 inches by 40 inches square. And the daisy stem behind, I couldn't see, of course, but the center of the daisy with the yellow heart of the daisy turned out to be a bright yellow. I framed it and then began taking more pictures of the daisy. Time passed, and one afternoon I got a call from the lab that I used. They very sadly told me that my negative of the daisy had cracked. I went into the lab, and they explained to me that the emulsion that takes the picture, holds the picture, had cracked on the clear material that holds the emulsion. They had talked to the man from Eastman Kodak, and he said he had never seen that before. The lab took some responsibility in the fact that the negative had cracked. So they told me I could take as many pictures as I wanted with my Mamiya, and they would process for me at no cost. I knew I was not going to be able to duplicate what I had done initially, but I took a lot of pictures anyway, and I was able to use some of them. And I had given those pictures to members of the family. Sandy got one. I sent one to Keith. I forget where the one. I kept one for myself. And I noticed that the pictures were fading. The reason is that the dyes fade when they're exposed to light. I had given one print to the Methodist hospital, and I saw that it was badly faded. So what I did was to go to a place to have it digitized, which means it would hold its color and its uh, fine points forever. So I went to Q, a fab place out on West Park, and they made me a single digitized Daisy picture. I took that and substituted the faded one at the Methodist Hospital, actually on Scurlock. The second floor is where that uh, is hanging. It will remain for clear for 1,000 years. We're trying to make other use, and I hope to have some follow up at a later date.